budget was mainly about either it was called the infrastructure budget or the technology and AI budget, or lastly, the skilling and talent development budget, where we're going to focus today. It meant a lot for the human resources leader this year. And this year's budget was not a budget of headline heavy welfare schemes or one off employment promises, right? Instead, it signaled something which was far more structural towards execution led skilling, towards formalization of employment, and also long term workforce readiness. It covered a lot of sectors and sectorial skilling, such as manufacturing, healthcare, Ayurveda. There was talk about women's participation, Divyangjan empowerment, and also compliance simplification. So it's safe to say that this year's budget treated human capital as economic infrastructure and not just a social afterthought. Now, for CHROs, this really raises a lot of uncomfortable but necessary questions. Before we get into the conversation, I'd like to introduce my panelist. We have with us Ms. Ruhie Pande. She's the Group CHRO and CMO of Serentica, Resonia, and Sterlite Electric. She's also joining us from overseas. She, I believe, is in Australia today, but she's joining us from overseas. Thank you, Ms. Ruhie.
Hi. Very happy to be here.
Thank you. We have Mr. Prasanth Nair, who is the CHRO of Crompton Greaves, and Mr. Amit Sharma, the CHRO of Gokaldas Exports.
So for me, when I look at this budget, I think puts a lot of focus around industry, especially manufacturing and services both. At the same time, I also see that there's a focus around long-term sustained employment generation and skill development. It's not just about schemes, which is about, getting employment there. It's about making people skilled, so that they can generate employment for themselves as well as for others. So that's something which I would say in nutshell. I really see that a completely path breaking from the previous budgets, where it is more towards, how do we really utilize our human resources towards better skill development.
Ms. Pande, do you want to add?
Yeah, I agree with Amit. I think the 2-3 things I liked is the focus on long term, especially things around manufacturing, which is a sector which needs a 5 to 10 years runway. So government's focus around skilling is very, very important. Some of the simplifications, creation of the education to employment committees, which focus not only on the creation of these schemes, but also to ensure execution, right? The execution choices of the government, I think, are very, very well received. Third is the focus on STEM, artificial intelligence, technical skills. I think that's amazing. And some of the subsidies specifically provided some of the simplification and compliance requirements which have been reduced, and encouragement to a lot of MSMEs to formalize. I think all these things are exceptionally welcome changes by the government. But like they say, I think the beauty will be in how these get executed, and of course, look forward to discussing that in the hour to come.
Thank you. Mr. Nair, you want to add something to that?
Couple of things. I think the budget is in a situation where there is a lot of global uncertainty about what's happening lately, and actually the fiscal prudence that the government has shown in ensuring that the deficit GDP ratio remains at the most optimal level. So I think the direction towards that, moving to 3.5% as the committee recommended some years back, I think that direction is very welcome. When a stable budget, a sustainable budget does a lot to creating an economic environment for investment. And what we require today is investment. The government has actually invested. Now it's for the private sector to invest. So a sustainable budget which focuses on GDP nominal growth of 10% and inflation at say the 3% is the best gift that the government has given to the industry. Having said that, on the employment side, what was heartening to note is that both on the horizontal level, wherein schemes that run across different sectors, the government has focused on them by simplifying, by focusing on skills which enable the jobs for the future. And they have focused also on the vertical sectors, which are employment heavy. So overall, a big plus for this budget from my side.
Mr. Sharma, we spoke about manufacturing. It was at the center of job creation across semiconductors, across biopharma, textiles, and also capital goods this year. So, from a CHRO's perspective, do you see this translating into sustained and quality jobs, or do you think it's mainly cyclical hiring tied to capex expansion? What do you think about that?
The way I look at it, if you really look at what are the key, focus areas which the government is trying to do through this budget, it's around building long-term, processes and long-term frameworks. Whether we look at it, setting up new institutes, whether we look at it, setting up new textile parks, or we're looking at, having, reviving the 200 clusters, the manufacturing clusters, looking at universities, which are going to be there along with the industrial townships, looking at the entire thing around Samarth 2.0, the entire piece around National Institutes of Design, and and other supports to MSMEs. The entire bouquet is around ensuring that there is a long-term sustenance around this and not just something which is cyclical. And one of the best part which I liked it, it's very comprehensive. It is looking at all these aspects, looking at infrastructure, it is looking at investment in development and training, and it's also looking at simplifying the lives of people who are entrepreneurs, through the corporate mitra scheme and all. So all these actually point towards something which is going to be sustainable, going to be long term, and not just cyclical, which sometimes things do tend to happen. But yes, the key point is that now, how does it really get translated on the ground, and how quickly it gets translated on the ground, because that's where the devil will lie.
So it's mainly about execution. Ms. Pande, I'll come to you now. When we talk about execution, which was a recurring theme for this year's budget, what is the single biggest execution challenge that you think might arise in fulfilling these promises that were made this year?
While the government has definitely focused, and I could totally agree with Amit on a bunch of schemes which they've launched, which are both about skilling, about simplification, I think the challenge lies when it eventually comes to get executed. How simple is it for corporates to be able to avail these subsidies? How does the state center combination or coordination work? How easy is it for people to go and enroll in these courses? And last but not the least, while the government is definitely focusing on STEM, AI, training, the 1 lakh caregivers generation through multiple schemes, eventually, how are they co-creating these curriculums? What eventually is being imparted as education? So are we only looking at these schemes in the longer run through the number of enrollments, or eventually if the idea and the end goal is how many jobs created, how much can they work in tandem with the industry? I think those would be certain nuances which the government could look at eventually. Otherwise, the ease of eventually launching these schemes, getting these subsidies, the quality of education provided, they've talked about creating these regional talent clusters. It's a very welcome step, because for someone like me who is in the capital goods manufacturing, you are eventually running pillar and pole to get all the quality talent in the same hub. How is it that the government eventually coordinates with the industry to get access to the industry for the skilled workforce? I think these would be the finer execution programs. If those are won over, and the government can work very closely with the industry, I think it will be a big plus.
Mr. Nair, what do you think is the single biggest execution challenge?
According to me, where the rubber meets the road is where in the presence of state government and district level. Okay. So while the budget is, I think, very positive about creating demand, about creating also supply in terms of talent and demand also. For example, they're talking about GCC, which is a huge thing that can transform India actually. If you can get the investments of GCC, as some states have done. Okay. And we create talent. So there's a demand part and the supply part that can come in. But ultimately, it's, these are, where are companies located? It's in states, it's in cities. So that ecosystem needs to actually gear up to actually, come up to speed to meet the actual needs of people. Okay, I'm not getting into the governance issues, but I think the platforms need to be created so that there is a kind of a seamless experience for talent to actually reach out. Number one. Number two, there is also companies find it easy to access talent in India. Okay. And I can see some differences. For example, there are some states who are doing a brilliant work on creating talent, on offering talent as an ecosystem. And other states can actually, they can replicate that efforts, or they can do something on their own. So for me, the state, the district, the city needs to be in alignment with the center government's agenda and center government's focus to actually translate some of these things into practical action that talent on one side and industry and companies on the other hand actually meet. The other thing that I want to point out, which is very important from a talent point of view, is the government has taken steps to get expat Indians who are actually located outside. It made it easier for them to locate back to India. That's a huge impetus for many of our industries. And what it does is it actually helps create global best practices for us to actually scale up. And that's in the true reflection of Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Nair, for sharing that. Mr. Sharma, now coming to the compliance part of it, the TDS norms were simplified. Also, the new Income Tax Act will come into play from April 2026. How did you view that development, and also how is it going to impact the payroll efficiency, dispute resolution?
This has always been one of the key issues with most of the time, most of the employees around. How do we ensure that they are absolutely compliant with the tax laws? And this is something the onus is also from a organization standpoint is also on us to ensure that we are, deducting the right TDS, depositing with the authorities, and so on and so forth. I think one of the key pieces which what we have seen in the budget is about the fact that simplifying of the returns, simplifying of the compliance requirements, also around ability for employees to update their returns if they feel that that they later on realize that there is a defect in that or something had to be disclosed, and the fact that they have also given waived off the interest in case where they have gone for an appeal if has been an assessment there. So all of this is really going to help. So I think what the government has done in this from a compliance standpoint is that around made it more easier for the people to comply and so on and so forth, whether it's about disclosing the foreign income around it. So, and also from SMA, small, medium enterprises also around, partnering with the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and to ensure that there are, those corporate mitras who are going to help organizations in those compliance requirements. So I think this entire piece, the focus has been on how we'll make the lives easier. And when the lives become easier from a compliance standpoint, the idea is that the compliance would be definitely much better, both on the part of employees as well as on the part of organizations. I think this is a good step. The government, instead of looking at more populist aspect of relooking at the income tax slabs, this is the key piece. How we really make lives easier for people to comply, and because anywhere. The easier the compliance is, the higher the compliance thresholds are always there. So that's something which is really positive.
Ms. Pande, there was a strong push towards formalization through MSME support, and also compliance clarity was there, as Mr. Sharma just explained. A lot of structured skilling was there. What is going to be the impact on the informal sector and on the informal employment? Do you think that will reduce?
Introduction of the corporate mitras, the ease out on compliance, offering this professional as well as equity support, right? Giving, allowing access to capital by the government to MSMEs. I feel more and more MSMEs should now be encouraged to enroll, become a part of the formal sector. Also, they would be now having more access and ease in terms of getting support in understanding how the compliance works. Yeah, because a lot of times the sector, the MSMEs stay informal because they're just very cautious about what is formalizing going to lead to. So I think the government has made that very, very clear, offering them both equity support as well as compliance support. And with the introduction parallelly, it's these are unrelated incidents, but with the new wage codes coming already launched in the month of November, and now with the easing of the compliances on the MSMEs, I think both together will ensure that more and more MSMEs will become formalized, will be encouraged to participate, and a lot of their compliances will become easier. But like I said again and again, Savi, a lot of this depends on eventually how easy is it really. Are these processes simple? Are these online? Do people who are running these MSMEs, instead of focusing on their business, if they need to focus a lot of their time and effort on compliance, then it will deter them. If the access is simple, it's a click away. If it's all online, I would think more and more MSMEs will join the formal sector as we go along.
Mr. Nair, how do you think the accountability of a CHRO after yesterday's budget will change over the next 2 to 5 years?
Very interesting question. The responsibility of CHRO is changing every day, according to me now. And with this budget, what will happen is, the CHRO, he or she should not just be responsible for managing the demand. I think over time, he or she should also be responsible for managing supply. Because with so much focus on education and skill building, the CHRO should not confine with just hiring or training. Should actually start work with institutes and see how we can actually prepare talent for our industry. Okay, I mean that would be the real ask from a CHRO, and they would be, we used to always take pride in the fact that our excuse, I would say, is that the talent is not available. I don't think in the coming days, with so much focus on skilling and education that the government has laid, informal and formal sector CHRO should never talk about not finding talent. So CHRO should reorient themselves to actually start creating talent rather than just supplying talent.
So the key piece is that CHROs now really need to move from, as I would say, is talent consumers to talent producers. That's the important part, and the onus also lies on HR now. Around it, because the government has now put forward all these schemes. Let's look at, for example, Samarth 2.0. Now it's a scheme where the government is saying, "Hey, you decide. There are these sectors. Partner with us, design the curriculum, train people, provide them with the on the job training, ensure that they are skilled enough, and hence absorb them." Now this is something, instead of writing hunting for it, I don't have the right talent, I don't have the right people, I don't, or the curriculum is not matching with the skill required, or we keep on talking about what academia produces and what our organizations want. They are not really matching. So here it's they have given us a fantastic platform. Let's partner together, let's design the right curriculum which you think is the industry relevant, train people and absorb them, give them employment, and generate, contribute to the larger skilling of the workforce through these means. So I think this is where the entire responsibility has to be now. The industry has to do its bit now, I would say. We can't always keep on talking about the government has to do this, government has to do that. Government has given a framework. It's also now equally the corporate responsibility, and where CHROs have to take the lead in now, holding it further and running with it, with the entire ecosystem which the government is going to provide us with the right infrastructure and the right schemes, and really help in boosting the skill development as well as the employment generation over here.
Unrelated to this is that, um, given the scope and the focus of digitization um, in India and abroad or in all organizations, I think we need to look at the job landscape in our respective organizations, saying that which jobs will change, which jobs will be created, and which jobs will not be there in a time frame. So we
Right.
need to work on that and say prepare people for the jobs that will be created and the jobs where there will be heavy impact but adjustable. The jobs that may not be there, I think we need to get people out of the jobs as early as possible. There's no point in coming to that point in, let's say, year time or 24 months time and say that, oh my God, this person is not suitable for that. So that's where one area where CHROs need to take a very proactive steps.
Government's push for things like girls' hostel and STEM, self-help, entrepreneur, maths, are also making diversity, equity, and inclusion a crucial metric for the government. And thereby, I think while CHROs have been trying to drive that mandate, it now is further supported by several actions the government's taken in the current budget. So it then completely falls upon the CHRO that thereby DEI is not a metric which is a good to have. It is a business priority like everything else. And now with the government also giving us more means, it brings things like DEI also completely to the fray, further adding to the challenges or the duties and responsibilities of the CHRO.
We started on a happy note, but my last question would also conclude this session. I would like all of you to give a rating out of 10 as to how you viewed the budget this year and also what were the missed opportunities and what could have been done better. Mr. Sharma, we'll start with you.
On a scale of 10, if you were to say, I'll still give it 9. I'll still say it's a great budget. And one of the key things which I really loved in this budget, apart from other things what we just discussed, is also about the focus on mental health. Now, we saw government announcing the fact that they are going to focus on mental health, set up one new NIMHANS. We only have one mental health institute in the country, setting up the second one, enhancing increasing the capabilities in other of the existing centers also. I think that's a very important piece which is currently plaguing the workforce. So that's a great piece. The only area why I would deduct it 1 mark instead of 10 is the fact that I think the government should also considering the fact that we do see situations of layoffs, we do see situations of companies, people losing their jobs due to various reasons, various corporate actions. I think we do need to have some kind of a social security system also available, like we have in some of the Western countries, where if you're not working, there is a system which is helping you take care of that. I think that's one piece which I would say, if there is one idea which I would say that's something which would be good for the government to also look at it and support those people who are through some social security system, who are losing their jobs due to some corporate action happening due to layoffs as such. But otherwise, that's I would say 9 out of 10.
Nair, what would be your rating?
I'll also give it about 9, actually. The only one area where I would have probably, there are two areas where probably we could have focused more on. One is to actually fuel entrepreneurship. Okay, we could have actually given some, soaps for tax benefits for ESOP and how it's actually, what are the tax, because right now ESOP is taxed in different ways, and the person, when he exercises that and sells it, there are points of taxation which could have been changed for the better for employees. Because ESOPs is a very important tool for compensation as far as startup ecosystem is concerned. Okay. The second area where I would find probably the government is focused on it, everything can't be put in one budget, of course, we know that, is the longevity of life is increasing. And, we should not get into the current many countries like Japan and European Union are facing, wherein the population that is working is supporting the population that is actually supporting a larger population which is on pension. Okay.
Right.
And many countries are having this debates, what should be the right retirement age? Okay. So maybe the government should in future focus on that at this stage so that we don't get into this problem 10 years from now.
I would say about an 8. And one or two areas where I definitely agree with Amit. I think in a country like ours, which is, of course, fast growing, but in the event of a layoff, what kind of social security medical benefits could at least continue for people who face timings when they don't have a job. And the second is, I think more SOPs, they want to encourage more women to work. They want to encourage schemes like Girls Hostel, but some amount of exceptional tax rebates to the working women population will further ensure increase in the workforce participation of women. So those would be my two bits.
Budget 2026 has made one thing clear, which is that India's future of work will not be decided by policy alone, but by organizations reimagining talent, learning, and leadership. Thank you for joining us today and for this wonderful conversation and taking out time to join us. Thank you.